My name is Brittany. I was 28 when my mother told the ER nurse she didn't know me. I was sitting in a wheelchair with a hospital bracelet around my wrist. I still had blood on my shirt from when I passed out in the cafe bathroom 20 minutes earlier. My coat was gone. My phone had died. And the only number I remembered by heart, my mom's, had actually picked up. "I'm on my way," she'd said. "Don't move. I'll bring your father." So I didn't move. I waited like a little kid, staring at the smeared tile floor of St. Agnes Urgent Care while my chest throbbed and my vision blurred. I remember the TV above the waiting room buzzing out a cooking segment I couldn't follow. I remember a girl in pink scrubs asking me 3 times if I had allergies. But what I remember most, clearer than the lights, clearer than the dizziness, was the way my mom's voice changed when she spoke to the triage nurse. "Oh no, we're just here to help," she said lightly. "We don't know her." I turned around too fast. The wheelchair squeaked and spun. There she was, perfect blowout, calm face, hands folded on her designer bag. And next to her, my dad, in his black parka, standing stiff as a statue. "Mom?" I croaked. She didn't look at me. Not even a glance. The nurse blinked. "She says you're her emergency contact. You two share a last name." My dad stepped forward. "It's a common name," he said. "She must have made a mistake." Made a mistake. The world tilted. I tried to stand, to say something that would make it stop, but I couldn't find the words. Couldn't even find my balance. My body felt like water inside broken glass. "She's in no condition to leave," the nurse insisted. "She collapsed in a public place. We need consent to begin imaging." I fumbled at my hip for my wallet. ID, insurance card, the old student photo I never changed. My fingers were shaking. I held it up like it was proof that I was real. "She's lying," I whispered. "They're my parents." No one moved. The nurse turned to them again. "Sir, if she's a danger to herself." "She's a stranger," my mom repeated, this time sharper. "Don't let her pull you into this." The phrase sliced through the air. Don't let her pull you into this. Like I was some schemer. A threat. I stopped breathing for a moment. The cold came in then, the cold that doesn't come from outside, but from knowing something irreversible has just happened. They walked away. That was the part I'll never forget. They walked away without turning back, as if I were someone else's child, someone else's burden. And the worst part? Nobody chased them. Nobody questioned it. Because if your own parents don't claim you, who else would? The nurse wheeled me to observation. A social worker came in. A clipboard appeared. I signed things. I answered questions I didn't understand. Everything blurred after that, like I was watching a play underwater. It wasn't until the next morning, when a second nurse noticed something odd in my records, that I got a single moment to breathe. But by then, something in me had already broken. And I hadn't even seen what they'd done yet. The next morning, I woke up to a tray of cold oatmeal and the faint sound of someone sobbing 2 beds over. My body felt like clay. The 4 in my arm pulsed with every breath. For a few seconds, I forgot where I was. But then I saw the hospital curtains. The stiff blanket. The scratchy socks on my feet. And it came back, the way my parents had stood 3 feet from me and told a nurse they didn't know who I was. I closed my eyes hard, hoping to shut it out. "Vitals are stable," someone said behind the curtain. "She just needs rest." Footsteps shuffled away. Then came the voice I didn't expect. "What if she remembers something?" my dad said. I froze. "She won't," my mother replied, her voice low, clipped. Not clearly. She was half-conscious. "We shouldn't have come," he hissed. "You panicked. I told you not to call." I didn't know she'd actually give them my number. My pulse hammered in my ears. I couldn't breathe, couldn't blink. They were just outside the curtain, not gone, like I thought. Still here. Still lying. "She has the bracelet," my dad muttered. "It has our name." "Then we say it was a coincidence," she snapped. "Or a clerical error. Whatever it takes. Just don't let her find out." "Find out what?" I strained forward, trying to hear more, but a nurse called out from down the hall and their voices trailed off. Silence fell again, thick and humming. I pressed my hand to my chest and felt the sticky wires of heart monitors beneath the gown. My head was swimming, but not from the medication. I was dizzy from something else now. Why were they so afraid? By noon, I'd been moved to a quiet corner room with a window facing the ambulance bay. The social worker returned. Her name was Tessa, and she had kind eyes that didn't pity me. "We're confirming your insurance now," she said gently. "Do you remember what happened before you collapsed?" "I was on break," I said. "I work at Perch Cafe on Franklin." I drank water. I felt lightheaded. Then I woke up here. She nodded slowly. "Anyone you want us to call again?" I shook my head. I didn't know who I trusted. Not yet. After she left, I waited 5 minutes, then slipped into the hallway. I still had bruises on my knees from hitting the tile when I fainted. Every step made my spine scream, but I didn't care. I just needed to move. To do something other than sit in a bed wondering if I was losing my mind. A nurse passed me but didn't stop. I followed the corridor toward the waiting area, unsure what I was even looking for. Then I saw it, my dad, standing near a vending machine, talking to someone on the phone. "I don't know how long she's staying." "The doctor said observation," he murmured. He paused, then added, "We'll handle it before it gets messy." I ducked behind the corner so fast I almost slipped. My fingers curled into fists. The cold tile against my back felt like a wall closing in. Handle what? Get messy how? This wasn't about a misunderstanding. This wasn't about estrangement or embarrassment. Something was wrong, deeply, deliberately wrong. I made my way back to the room before anyone noticed I was gone. The second I closed the door behind me, my stomach flipped. A small white envelope was resting on my pillow. No name, no stamp. Just a folded slip of paper inside with 5 words in sharp, uneven handwriting. "Don't trust what they say." I read the note 5 times before I could move again. Don't trust what they say. No signature. No context. Just dread that crawled under my skin like ice. The envelope was crisp, recent. Someone had been in my room while I was gone. I scanned the hallway. No one. Just the low hum of monitors and the steady beep of the 4 machine behind me. I slipped the note into my pocket and sat down slowly, pretending to rest. But inside, every nerve in my body was screaming. There was something else too, a name. I hadn't meant to catch it, but I did. When my dad was on the phone near the vending machines, he said, "Call Rena. She'll know what to do." Rena. That wasn't a name I recognized. It wasn't family. And it wasn't someone he would have mentioned in front of my mother. His voice had dropped when he said it, like it was a secret he regretted saying aloud. I waited until the hallway was clear again, then walked. I didn't know what I was looking for. Maybe an office, a clipboard, a staff badge with her name. Anything. The nurses were busy. No one stopped me as I wandered past radiology, then down a narrower hallway marked staff access only. Every few steps, I stopped to listen. Nothing. Then, at the end of the hall, I saw it. A plaque on a door. Rena Mahoney, MSW, Hospital Case Review. Locked. Of course it was. But someone had propped it with a clipboard, probably thinking they'd be right back. I nudged the door. It gave a little. I hesitated. This wasn't curiosity anymore. It was trespassing. But I'd been humiliated, dismissed, and lied to by the 2 people who were supposed to protect me. And now someone else was involved? I pushed the door open. The office was small. 2 chairs. A cheap forward desk. Folders stacked neatly in color-coded trays. A faded print of some calm ocean scene hung behind the monitor. It smelled faintly of lavender and printer ink. I didn't touch the computer. I didn't need to. There, on the desk, half covered by a file folder, was a patient intake form. I didn't want to snoop, not really, but my eyes caught something that made my breath catch. My name, Brittany Ellis. But the date of birth was wrong. The form said I was 30. I was born in 97, not 95. And then the bottom line, emergency contact, R. Mahoney, legal guardian, temporary. Legal guardian? No. No. This had to be a mistake. I was a grown woman. I lived alone. I worked. Paid taxes. I wasn't under anyone's care. My heart was pounding so hard it drowned out thought. What were they doing? Why was a hospital social worker listed as my guardian? Why wasn't my name correct? I backed out of the room, closed the door quietly, and pressed my palm to the cold wall. I had to get out. The answers weren't in this hospital. Whatever was happening, it started before I collapsed. Maybe before I ever walked into that cafe. I returned to my room just in time. Tessa, the social worker, came in moments later with a soft smile and a discharge packet in her hand. Doctor signed off. "You're stable enough to go home now," she said. "Someone from your emergency contact list will pick you up shortly." "Who?" I asked. "Your father called in a transport. He said you don't have keys." I forced a smile. "Right." She helped me sign the forms. I took the plastic hospital bag they'd stuffed my shirt and wallet into. I slipped on my shoes. But when the hospital aide rolled up with a wheelchair and asked, "Are you ready, MS Mahoney?" I knew something was wrong again. I didn't correct him. Instead, I said yes. And as they wheeled me out through the side entrance, not the lobby, I realized I'd have to disappear before the car pulled up. Because whatever they were trying to make me believe, I wasn't going to let them finish the lie. I didn't wait for the car. The second the wheelchair stopped at the sliding exit doors, I stood, mumbled something about fresh air, and ducked past the row of smokers outside. The aide called after me, but I didn't look back. The hospital faded behind me like a sinking ship. My legs ached, but adrenaline pushed me forward. I walked for blocks, past a bus stop, a shuttered pawn shop, and an old church with a crooked sign that read "Grace isn't earned." I didn't stop until I saw the flickering vacancy sign of a roadside motel wedged between a tire center and a vape lounge. I had $53 in my wallet and a few ones crumpled in my jacket. It would be enough for one night, maybe two if I skipped food. The clerk didn't look up at first. He was behind a cloudy plexiglass barrier, eating sunflower seeds and watching an ancient TV bolted to the wall. I cleared my throat. "Do you have a single room?" He glanced up, and something in his face changed. "Oh," he said, his eyes narrowing. "You're back." "Back?" He nodded slowly. "Told you that doctor place wasn't good for you." My blood ran cold. "I think you've mistaken me for someone else." But he was already reaching for a key. "Same room as last time? Or you want upstairs this time?" I hesitated. "What name do you have me under?" He blinked. "Rachel. Rachel Bell. Paid cash last time too." My lips parted, but nothing came out. He looked so certain. Like I wasn't a stranger to him at all. "I'm not," I started, but he pushed the key toward me. "Room 12. Towels are still clean. Microwave's busted, but the fridge works." I took the key with a hand that didn't feel like mine. Inside, the motel room smelled like bleach and smoke. There was a lumpy bed, a single lamp, and floral curtains pulled tight. I sat on the edge of the mattress and stared at the peeling wallpaper. The silence was deafening. I opened my wallet again. ID still read Brittany Ellis. But in the clerk's eyes, I was Rachel. I whispered the name to myself. Rachel Bell. It sounded fake, but not unfamiliar. I reached for the nightstand drawer. No Bible, just a takeout menu and an old receipt with the corner torn off. The date was 2 months ago. The name on it was scribbled in blue ink. Rachel. I gripped the edge of the drawer. The room started to spin again, not like before, not from pain. From questions I didn't know how to form. Had I been here before? Was it possible? I staggered to the bathroom and splashed water on my face. My reflection stared back, gaunt, pale, bloodshot eyes. Nothing about me screamed Rachel. But maybe someone else thought differently. The note. The wrong hospital records. The lie about my birthday. And now this. My mind clung to something the motel clerk had said. That doctor place wasn't good for you. What doctor place? I sat back on the bed and pulled out the envelope from my coat again. Don't trust what they say. I flipped it over. In the crease of the flap, almost invisible, was a faint stamp and address. Not a full one, but enough. Oak Ridge Center, 91, Hillside Lane. I didn't know what Oak Ridge was. But it wasn't on any paperwork from St. Agnes. I pulled the thin blanket around me and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow, I'd go to Oak Ridge. I didn't care what it was. A clinic, a rehab center, something else. If that was where Rachel had been, or where Brittany had disappeared, I had to see it with my own eyes. Because right now, I didn't know which name was mine. And maybe, neither did they. I didn't sleep. The motel air conditioner clicked all night like it was counting down to something. My thoughts churned until morning, until the motel clerk's "see you again, Rachel" followed me out the door like a warning. I walked to the nearest bus stop, clutching a crumpled napkin with the words Oak Ridge Center, 91, Hillside Lane, scrawled on it. The ride took 27 minutes. I got off at the edge of town where sidewalks ended and the buildings thinned into tall chain-link fences and gray concrete. Oak Ridge sat behind black iron gates, tucked between a dry lot of pines and a winding road that looked like it hadn't been repaved in years. It didn't look like a clinic. It looked like a school that had been forgotten. 2 stories. Long, narrow windows. No signs. No guards. But the door buzzed when I pushed the intercom. "Yes," a voice crackled. I'm looking for Rena Mahoney?" I tried to sound confident. A pause. Then, "Come in, Rachel." The lock clicked. I froze. They called me Rachel again. I stepped inside. The lobby was cold, too quiet, lined with plastic chairs and an empty reception window. Faint classical music played from somewhere deeper inside, or maybe just through hidden speakers. The floor tiles were checkerboard, the walls off-white. Then she appeared. Short blonde hair. Black slacks. Clipboard hugged to her chest. "Rachel," she said, beaming. "You're back early." "I'm sorry," I said, throat tight. "Have we met?" She laughed lightly. "That's what you said last time too. Always with the jokes." My fingers twitched. "What is this place?" Her brow furrowed. "Come now, you know Oak Ridge. We've done this." I know it's hard to readjust. "I think you've confused me with someone else," I said carefully. "Your intake was signed 2 months ago," she replied, stepping closer. "You were transferred here voluntarily. Your father handled all the paperwork himself." My lungs tightened. "No," I said. "That's not possible. I just came from the hospital. I've never—" "You fainted at Perch Cafe," she interrupted gently. "Same as before." The walls began to tilt again. That same phrase. Fainted at Perch. That's what I remembered. But how would she know? "I have my ID," I said quickly, fumbling for my wallet. She didn't even look. "You carried that same ID last time, too. Brittany Ellis. We have it on record. But your case history was always under Rachel Bell." My hand dropped. She gestured toward the hallway. "Why don't we go sit down?" "No," I said. I can't stay. I just wanted to ask a few questions." She studied me. "Rachel, did you leave the motel without checking in with Dr. Yates?" "I'm not Rachel," I snapped. A flicker of something crossed her face then. Not surprise. Not fear. Something else. Resignation. "I see," she said quietly. "It's happening again." She reached into her pocket and handed me a folded paper. "Here. This was yours. You left it last time." I unfolded it. Handwriting my own. Slanted, slightly rushed. "If I forget again, I need to go to the house on Fairmore Lane. Only there." I looked up. "Whose handwriting is this?" "Hers," she said. "Mine." I backed away. "I have to go." "I won't stop you," she said gently. "But someone might." That sentence followed me all the way down the gravel path, past the bus stop, past the peeling ad for a missing woman taped to the bench. I didn't breathe until the street curved and Oak Ridge was out of sight. Only then did I unfold the note again. "Go to the house on Fairmore Lane." But whose house was it? And why did I sign my own name to a warning I didn't remember writing? The bus dropped me off 2 blocks from Fairmore Lane. It was almost dusk. I walked past rows of identical mailboxes and wind-chimed porches, my fingers clenched around the note. The paper was damp with sweat. I didn't know what I was about to find or who would be waiting. Number 213 looked like every other house on the street. Vinyl siding, a rusting white mailbox, and a dying fern drooping over the railing. But the porch light was on, and the front door was slightly open. I stopped at the bottom step. My pulse pounded so loud I could hear it in my teeth. I pushed the door slowly. It creaked. The smell hit me first, faint lavender and dust, like a house no one had lived in for a while, or one someone came and left in a hurry. I stepped inside. Living room. Beige couch. A blue throw blanket folded perfectly on one end. A half-burned candle on the coffee table. Then the photos on the wall. Rows of them. Framed. Centered. Professionally done. Me. Standing in front of a bookstore. Sitting on a porch I didn't recognize. Hugging a man whose face had been scratched out violently, like someone took a key to the glass. I staggered closer. One frame showed me smiling in front of a birthday cake with a 30 candle. I was 28. I am 28. I touched the glass. It was real. The reflection showed my pale face, my trembling hand. Then I heard it. A creak upstairs. Not the house settling footsteps. I turned toward the staircase. Hello. I called out, voice brittle. No answer. Each step felt like walking toward the edge of a cliff. My legs barely worked, but something pulled me forward, not courage, not recklessness. Just the unbearable weight of needing to know. The upstairs hallway was lined with more pictures. A mirror that reflected nothing but a sliver of my shoulder. And one door, halfway open. I pushed it. It was a bedroom. Not mine, not Brittany's. But everything inside it screamed Rachel. A name stitched on a duffel bag near the closet. Journals stacked beside a lamp. A calendar with appointments scribbled in red ink. Appointments I didn't remember. Names I didn't recognize. A key taped inside the drawer labeled storage, do not trust them. But before I could peel it off, the closet door creaked open behind me. I spun. Nothing. Just darkness. And then, a voice from behind me. Quiet. Controlled. You weren't supposed to come back here. I turned slowly. A woman stood in the hallway. Maybe late 40s. Calm. Perfectly still. Not shocked to see me. Not confused. Like she'd been waiting. Who are you? I whispered. She tilted her head. That's the wrong question. Why is my face all over this house? Because you lived here. Before. No. I didn't. You left. Voluntarily, remember? And now you're back. That changes things. I'm not Rachel. She smiled, sad and slow. That's what you said last time. I don't remember this place. I don't remember you. She stepped back into the hallway. That's the point. I lunged forward, grabbing the key from the drawer before bolting past her down the stairs. She didn't chase me. Didn't shout. She just watched. I burst out the front door, ran until the houses blurred, until the street lights buzzed to life. I didn't stop until I reached the bus shelter again, lungs burning, key clenched in my fist. Who is she? And why did part of me believe her? I didn't sleep that night either. The motel's blanket was too thin. The shadows under the door too long. Every time I blinked, I saw her face, the woman in the hallway. Her voice echoing, that's what you said last time. She wasn't surprised to see me. That's what chilled me most. Like I was on a loop she'd watched before. The key I'd grabbed was small, brass, no label, except for a smudged number etched into the handle, 5477. I searched online until I found a storage facility that used 4-digit unit codes. 20 minutes from Fairmore Lane. Open 24/7. I left before sunrise. No buses ran that early, so I walked the first 4 miles, then caught a rideshare with a driver who didn't ask questions. By the time I reached the gate, the sky had gone pale with morning light. A keypad stood at the entrance. I tried the unit number 5477 as the code. It worked. The gate rolled open slow, creaking like a warning. Rows of metal doors stretched in both directions. Cold, industrial. Soulless. Unit 5477 sat near the back. I spotted it immediately. The padlock dangled from the handle, snapped open, useless. My stomach dropped. Someone had already been here. I pulled the door up. It rattled, protesting the intrusion, then slid high enough to reveal a single bulb flickering overhead and a room that had clearly been ransacked. Boxes torn open. Shredded paper across the floor. A file cabinet tipped on its side. Photos littered the ground, all of me, again, younger, dressed in clothes I didn't remember, standing beside people I didn't recognize. I stepped inside. The air was stale with mildew and something else. Something chemical. It wasn't just storage. This place had been curated. Designed. Like someone had assembled a museum of a life I didn't know I lived. One wall was covered in index cards, pinned in rows under dates. February 19th. Breakthrough. Morning stable. No tremor. March 5th, she called herself Brittany again. March 23rd, reversion event triggered by cafe exposure. Do not reintroduce that stimulus. My knees gave out. This wasn't about amnesia. It wasn't about confusion or lies. This was documentation. Experimentation. Someone had been watching me, recording me, deciding who I was allowed to be on any given day. I crawled toward a stack of labeled folders in the corner. One read replication file, backup protocol, Rachel/Brittany only. But the folder was empty. No backup. Just an empty shell. I turned to leave, and that's when I noticed the red light blinking in the ceiling corner. A camera. Still on. Still recording. I stared at it. Frozen. How long had it been watching? Who else had been watching with it? I backed out of the unit slowly, heart pounding in my throat. The air outside tasted metallic. My head felt like it was caving in. Then I saw it. A tire track in the gravel, fresh, sharp, pointed toward the exit. Someone else had left just minutes before. They knew I was coming. Maybe they always had. I looked down at my shaking hands, then back at the silent rows of units behind me. I wasn't alone anymore. And I wasn't sure I ever had been. I didn't go back to the motel. I didn't go anywhere near my old address, or the cafe, or the clinic. I walked for an hour with no destination until I found a laundromat with a 24-hour sign and ducked inside just to sit down and breathe. I dug through the folder I'd pulled from the unit, not the empty one, the other one I'd grabbed in a panic just before bolting. Most of the papers were shredded. But jammed between 2 pages of appointment charts was a photograph that hadn't been torn. Glossy. Clean. A girl on a swing, hair loose in the wind, laughing. My face. But on the back, written in purple marker, was a name I'd never heard before. Claire. Not Brittany. Not Rachel. Claire. I stared at it for a long time, my brain trying to reject it the way a body rejects a lie. My throat closed up. The photo felt heavier than paper should. I pulled out my ID again. Still said Brittany Ellis. Same plastic, same DMV issue date. But the girl on the swing, that wasn't a DMV photo. That was Joy. That was real. Was Claire another identity? Another version? Or had I been Claire first, before someone started erasing the rest? I remembered something then. Not a memory. A moment. A flash. Swinging. Wind in my ears. Someone clapping. And then nothing. My vision blurred. The coin dryer buzzed behind me, but I didn't hear it. My heartbeat filled every corner of my skull. I needed to know who Claire was. If she was me, or someone they made me believe I wasn't. The papers I'd stolen included a half-ripped address form. The top was gone, but the bottom corner had an emblem, a tree with twisted roots and the faint words, New Haven Behavioral Program. I recognized the symbol. Not because I'd seen it before, but because it was burned into the bottom of the clipboard in that woman's office at the Fairmore house. She worked there. That house wasn't just a house. It was part of a larger program. A place where things got buried, names, timelines, memories. I pulled out the motel notepad from my bag and scribbled down everything I could remember. Brittany Ellis, Cafe Collapse. Rachel Bell, Oak Ridge, Motel Alias. Claire photo ID? Swing? Earliest? Fairmore Lane, not home, surveillance site? Storage 5477 breach. Documents missing. New Haven, linked to Fairmore. There was a pattern here. Someone or some organization had been carefully managing my identity. Not hiding me. Shifting me. Resetting me every time I got too close to something real. I circled the name. Claire. That name felt like a bruise I hadn't noticed until it was touched. Familiar. Painful. Someone had been trying very hard to erase her. To turn her into a Rachel, a Brittany, something they could control. But if Claire was the original, the one they buried, then that was the part of me they feared most. A janitor passed by with a mop and gave me a side glance, but didn't speak. I folded the photograph, slipped it into my shoe, and zipped the folder shut. If someone was still watching, I couldn't carry this out in the open. By dawn, I'd find New Haven. I wouldn't knock. I wouldn't announce myself. I'd walk in the back, through the cracks in their system. Because if they'd spent this long trying to kill the truth in me, Then the truth was powerful. And maybe dangerous. New Haven didn't look like a place where anything happened. A flat gray structure behind a retirement village and a dentist's office. No sign on the fence. No official listing. Just a buzzed gate and a keypad with worn-out numbers. I waited until shift change. The staff exited in clusters, badges swinging, scrubs loose, shoulders hunched with routine. I spotted one woman with the same emblem from the clipboard, the twisted tree. When she fumbled with her coffee lid, I moved. I slipped inside before the gate clicked shut. No alarms. No one looked back. The interior was antiseptic and silent. Pale floors, pale walls, every door with a number instead of a name. I kept my hoodie up and my head down, walking like I belonged. I'd learned that part early. If you act like you have a purpose, most people won't question you. Room 3C. It was on the torn page from the storage unit, a reference line scribbled next to conditioned variants, Claire 3C. I crept through a hallway past an observation window and ducked behind a medicine cart. Voices passed. Calm, measured tones. No alarms. Still safe. Room 3C sat near the end. No name. Just a heavy steel door with a small square of reinforced glass. I stepped up slowly. Looked in. And forgot how to breathe. Inside, lying on a cot, arms folded across her stomach, was me. Or someone who looked so much like me, my knees buckled. Same build. Same mouth. But her hair was longer, darker. Her posture too still, like she'd been trained to lie perfectly flat. Her eyes were closed, but she wasn't asleep. I felt it. I tapped the glass once. Nothing. Twice. She opened her eyes. And stared directly at me. We didn't move. Just locked eyes through the tiny pane as if the hallway collapsed and time cracked in half. She blinked once. Then mouthed a single word. Run. Before I could react, an alarm blared from down the corridor, not from my hallway, but 2 sections over. I ducked back behind the cart. A nurse in green scrubs rushed past, radio clipped to her collar. She didn't look twice at me. I turned back. The door to 3C was open. The cot was empty. No one inside. I reeled backward. Had she left? Was I hallucinating? Was it a setup? Then I saw the corner of a photo, my photo, tucked under the cot leg. I grabbed it. The same swing photo. But this one had different writing on the back. Not Claire. Not Rachel. Just one sentence. If you found this, you're not alone. I backed away. Every part of me shook. They weren't just manipulating me, they were replicating me. Or monitoring multiple versions. Training us, separating us. Watching who broke first. I needed proof. I needed someone outside this labyrinth of lies who would believe me. But as I slipped back through the hall toward the staff wing, I saw something that froze my blood. A chart taped beside the break room. Patient status, Bell, R, flagged, relapse risk, do not disclose to subject. Patient status, Ellis, B, terminated, see archive. Patient status, Claire M, pending reentry, obfuscated. 3 names. 1 face. One of them, me, was marked as terminated. And that meant someone had already decided I didn't deserve to exist. I didn't wait for the hall to clear. I moved like a shadow past the nurse's station, heart thudding like footsteps behind my ribs. Every turn at New Haven felt sharper now, like the walls knew I didn't belong. The archive was downstairs. I'd seen the arrow on a laminated fire map tacked to the break room wall. One red line curved toward the east wing and vanished behind a metal door labeled restricted, authorized staff only. I found it unlocked. The stairs led down to a basement level, no cameras, no motion detectors. Just a cold hum and the buzz of overhead fluorescents that flickered like they didn't want to stay on. The archive wasn't digital. It was room after room of drawers, shelves, rows of thick binders with coded tabs. Organized chaos. And at the far end, a metal filing cabinet with the same symbol from the clipboard and the photo, the twisted tree. I yanked open the top drawer. Inside, sealed envelopes. Each with a name, a date, a number. I skimmed fast. Ellis, B/DOB, March 17th/entry file 12-7. I froze. Then pulled it. Inside was a single sealed plastic sleeve. One pink hospital bracelet. Faded ink, but my name was clear. Claire Madison Ellis. My lungs collapsed. Claire Madison Ellis. The surname wasn't fake. It was mine. The other versions, Brittany, Rachel, had been grafted on. Overwritten like correction fluid. But underneath it all, I'd always been Claire. I slid to the ground. The file had more. Medical documents, all from private facilities. One paper with my baby footprints. Another with a list of contacts, not doctors. Primary transfer request. Robert Ellis, Nancy Ellis. My parents. I stared at their names until they blurred. There was a note clipped to the bottom, handwritten in rushed, slanted letters. Subject's identity to be rotated in 18-month intervals per psychological resistance pattern. Do not inform prior guardians. Containment under B began December 2020. Do not permit recontact with biological anchors. Biological anchors. That meant me. To them, I was a threat to myself. To the system they'd built. And my parents, the people who raised me, they didn't lose me. They gave me away. Not to strangers, but to a process. A program. A rotation. They'd chosen to delete me one version at a time. I flipped to the last sheet. A list of names and approvals. The final one read, parental sign-off/consent, informed, voluntary, permanent. Beneath it, 2 signatures. Robert Ellis. Nancy Ellis. I didn't cry. Not then. I stood, trembling, clutching the folder like it was the only thing tethering me to reality. I looked down the aisle of boxes and binders and locked drawers. How many others were buried in here? How many other selves had been wiped clean so someone else could manage their lives? I stepped into the hall. The lights flickered again. I ducked into a supply closet as footsteps echoed from above. I held my breath. When the sound faded, I pulled the baby bracelet from the sleeve and fastened it around my wrist. Claire Madison Ellis. They'd tried to erase me. But I had the proof now. And I wasn't going back into their system. Not ever again. I took a bus to the edge of the city, then walked 3 miles to my parents' favorite breakfast place, not because they loved the food, but because it was public. Safe. Neutral. Controlled. That's what they liked best. It was Sunday morning. The place was busy, full of families and clinking cutlery and the dull hum of laughter. My parents were already seated in the corner booth, like they were expecting me. Dad looked up from his phone. Mom didn't even flinch. I slid into the booth across from them without speaking. Set the baby bracelet on the table. Then the folder. Then waited. Dad stared at it. Then pushed the manila edge with 2 fingers. Mom glanced around the cafe, then leaned forward. You shouldn't have gone to New Haven, she said quietly. No emotion. No shock. Just resignation. You signed it, I whispered. You signed me over. She didn't deny it. Dad cleared his throat. It wasn't meant to be permanent. You weren't well. Don't say that, I snapped. Don't you dare turn this into a mental health story. I wasn't sick. I was inconvenient. Claire, Mom said, her voice sharp now, you need to lower your voice. I'm not Rachel. I'm not Brittany. I'm not some folder you reshuffle every time I get too close to the truth. You were breaking down, Dad said, finally looking at me. You'd started questioning things that, frankly, could have hurt the family. The family? I choked. I am the family. I was your daughter. And you threw me into a memory blender because you didn't like who I was becoming. We protected you, Mom hissed. You buried me, I said. A pause. Long, heavy. The cafe noises faded into a dull blur. Then Dad reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I didn't touch it. What is that? An arrangement, he said. A path forward. I laughed once, hollow. A script, right? A character sheet for your daughter version 4.0. He didn't blink. We can reintegrate you, gradually. Publicly, if that matters. People will think you were abroad. Healing. You'll be back by fall. And I just pretend this never happened? It didn't happen, Mom said softly. Not legally. Not medically. Not publicly. You were away. And now you're back. No one has to know. The rage didn't come all at once. It built like a rising tide in my ribs, each breath more jagged than the last. "I'm not covering for you," I said. "I'm not playing along." Dad leaned back. "You won't get far, Claire. You know how this works. They won't believe you. Not without proof. And New Haven doesn't let files walk out." I smiled, then slowly reached into my coat and laid a second envelope on the table. The photos, the intake forms, the bracelet, the staff badge I'd stolen from a nurse locker at shift change. All of it. Dad went pale. Mom's lips parted. I stood. "Start believing it now," I said, then leaned in close. "Because I'm not just getting out of this," I whispered. "I'm pulling it apart. One lie at a time." Then I walked out, not fast, not dramatic. Just steady. Like someone who finally remembered exactly who she was. They gave me a name. They gave me a diagnosis. Then they gave me away. Now I was giving them something back. Consequence. I arrived at Oak Ridge just before noon, wearing plain clothes, a staff badge clipped low, and confidence stitched into every step. I had memorized the map, the hall codes, and the elevator override. I didn't need force. I needed 5 minutes of access, and I knew exactly where to get it. The front lobby buzzed with routine. A nurse chatted with reception. A janitor hummed near the vending machines. I moved past them like I belonged, calm, patient, forgettable. Down the left corridor, past intake, past the garden window. Then the staff room. Locker 14. I'd seen her use it 3 days ago. The blonde with the clipboard, the same woman from the Fairmore house. Her badge had been cloned. Her code scribbled in her own handwriting on a sticky note inside her locker door. "If I forget again, 6-1-3-5. She'd been sloppy. I used it. The door clicked. Behind it, the patient database terminal. And in the top drawer, an external drive, labeled Secure, Audit Only. I plugged it into the system and opened the patient record under Brittany Ellis. Dead file. Flagged. Archived. Then Rachel Bell. Redacted. Then Claire Madison Ellis. 3 entries. All incomplete. All dated under different surnames. But I didn't need the full files. I needed the names attached to the clearance levels. I printed them all. I had them now. Everyone who signed off. Doctors. Staff. Program coordinators. Including the woman who stood in the hallway right now. Clipboard. Calm smile. Still believing she was untouchable. I moved quickly to the east wing, the therapy floor. Room 6B. That's where the original versions were kept, the fragments, the controlled stories. The training loops. Inside, I found 3 boxes. Mine. Photos. Medical charts. Video recordings. Even my old voice, played back in slow, calm tones. I am safe. I am Brittany. I am who they say I am. I erased them all. Dragged the folder to trash. Deleted. Emptied. Physically smashed the CD marked Ellis V3. This wasn't about recovery. It was about erasure. They hadn't helped me. They'd rewritten me. For what? For convenience? Control? I opened the top drawer of the last file cabinet and dropped in a single item. The baby bracelet. Claire Madison Ellis. Unbroken. I left it there, like a warning. Then I walked out the way I came in, not hiding this time, not ducking my head. I wanted them to see me. I wanted the woman with the clipboard to look up and know. The loop is broken. At the door, the receptionist called out, "Miss? Are you?" But I kept walking. Down the steps. Into the sun. Back to the world they tried to keep me from. I didn't have everything yet. But I had enough to start the fire. And this time, I'd make sure every name in that program saw smoke coming for them. I didn't go to the police. I went to a journalist. One I'd followed for years, quietly, anonymously, long before any of this began. Her name was Lila Knox. She wrote stories no one else dared touch, the kinds that made institutions tremble. She didn't publish for clicks. She published to break chains. I waited outside the public library where she gave lectures on investigative ethics. A gray scarf around my neck, papers pressed against my ribs. I didn't breathe until I saw her stepping down the front steps, tote bag slung, voice crisp as ever. "Ms. Knox," I said, approaching fast. "You don't know me. But I know you. And I need your help. She hesitated. Not fearful. Appraising. Then nodded once. 5 minutes. We sat in the back of a closed cafe 2 blocks down. I laid the file on the table and didn't speak as she opened it. She flipped through the contents with the skill of someone who'd seen too much, but when she got to the intake forms, the bracelet photo, and the New Haven transfer logs, her brow tightened. "This is real?" she asked. I nodded. Every page. I pulled it myself. I walked through their halls. And this signature, she tapped the parental consent form. "This is your father?" My whole life, I said, voice low, was a series of approved deletions. She didn't speak for a long time. Then she whispered something that made my stomach drop. "You look just like the girl from the Roswell file." I blinked. "What file?" "Private school in Vermont. 6 years ago. Same erased trail. Same contradictions. No birth record under the name she gave us. No trace after age 16. But the photo she left behind." She pulled out her phone. Scrolled. Turned it toward me. My face. Same eyes. Shorter hair. Labeled, Alicia Ray. I stared. Was she Claire too? "We never found out," Lila said. "The family denied everything. Refused interviews. She vanished." "She didn't vanish," I said. "She was recycled." The horror settled in slow, sticky waves. I wasn't one case. I was a model. They'd done this before. Lila closed the folder. "I'll publish it," she said. "Every page. Every signature. I'll protect your name if you want, or blast it across every outlet that'll listen." I shook my head. "I don't care if they hear my name. I want them to feel it." She smiled faintly. "They will." I stood, dizzy with motion and relief. But as I turned to leave, Lila said something that froze me mid-step. "There's a clause in these documents. Clause 9G. It's usually hidden under legal redactions." I looked back. "What about it?" She flipped to the page again. "It permits emergency memory recalibration in the event of exposure. Meaning, if they suspect you're going public." My breath caught. "They can send someone after you to trigger a relapse. Not a gun. Not a threat. Just a phrase. A scent. A place. Something coded deep in the foundation of whoever they'd rebuilt me to be. Something that could break me back into submission. Unless I struck first. Unless I made it so public, so fast, they couldn't smother the flames in time." I took the folder back. "Then we don't wait." I chose the night carefully. Not just for impact, for irony. My parents were hosting a charity gala in honor of my sister Danielle's new Mental Health Resilience Fund. Held at the Harborview Hotel, full of executives, donors, physicians. Even a New Haven sponsor was listed on the pamphlet. The same people who funded the system that erased me. They gave her a spotlight. I took the microphone. I wore black. Hair pulled tight. No jewelry. No weakness. I entered through the kitchen, same as I always did in their world, through the back, unnoticed, unwelcomed. But this time, I walked out the double doors into the banquet hall just as the host introduced Danielle's inspirational family story. People turned. Some gasped. My mother's hand flew to her mouth. My father didn't move. Danielle blinked once, like her brain couldn't match my face to any version she'd been taught. I stepped up to the stage. "Hi," I said into the mic, "my name is Claire Madison Ellis." A ripple. A murmur. "That name won't appear on the guest list tonight." But it should. I opened the folder. And I read. Not a speech. Not a plea. A sequence. Transfer orders. Legal signatures. Psychological reprogramming instructions. I read the clause about memory recalibration. The emergency response triggers. The funding ties. And then I held up the baby bracelet. This is who I was before they erased me. Silence. Complete. I turned toward the crowd. There are girls like me, dozens, maybe more. Disappeared through legality, made unrecognizable through trauma. Some were given new names. New stories. You applauded those stories. You gave money to the programs that perfected the method. Someone in the third row stood to leave. "Sit down," I said sharply. "You'll want to hear how your grant was used." A screen behind me flickered on. Lila's work. Photos. Documents. A timeline of deliberate manipulation from the very donors in that room. My parents didn't move. They didn't shout. They didn't try to stop me. They just watched. Mom's mascara ran. Dad adjusted his cufflink. I turned to Danielle. She didn't speak. But I saw it, that tiny split-second crack in her face, like a mirror warping. Not guilt. Recognition. She knew. Not all of it, but enough. I lowered the mic. You don't get to decide who I am anymore. Then I walked down the steps. People backed away like I was radioactive. Lila met me in the lobby. We didn't hug, just nodded. A quiet pact. The first story would run before midnight. The next wave would follow. This was no longer a secret. This was a reckoning. They created a machine to erase girls like me. But I'd turned it around. And aimed it back at them. The bracelet still fit. It clung to my wrist as I drove through the hills, windows down, air thick with summer pollen. No more code words. No aliases. No folders with assigned roles. Just one name. Mine. Claire Madison Ellis. I didn't tell anyone where I was going. Lila didn't ask. Danielle never called. My parents had gone quiet, not legally bound, but silenced by shame. The system didn't fall in a day. But the cracks had deepened. Donors pulled out. Investigations opened. New Haven's gates closed to internal review. But I had one place left to see. I parked just outside the county line, beside a long-forgotten dirt path winding behind an overgrown field. My shoes crunched over dry weeds as I hiked past the tree line. The sky hung low, gray, and heavy. It took me 20 minutes to find it. The tree. Not a symbol on paper. Not a logo on a folder. The real thing. Twisted roots. Branches bent from wind and time. Its bark split in a pattern I recognized, a mirror of the one on the New Haven documents. This was the original. The place they pulled their emblem from. And this was where it started. I knelt beneath it. The bracelet pressed tight to my skin. I reached into my bag, pulled out the last sealed envelope from the archive. The one labeled obsolete to shred. It held the Rachel files. The Brittany logbooks. A tangle of dates and fabricated recollections. Lies that had once been my whole world. I placed it at the base of the tree. Then took out a lighter. Flame met corner. Paper curled, blackened. The wind threatened to snuff it, but I shielded it, patient, watching it burn page by page. Smoke lifted through the branches like breath being returned to the sky. I didn't cry. Not because it didn't hurt, but because it didn't own me anymore. I sat back on the ground. And listened. To nothing. No echoes of my mother's cold voice. No fake affirmations whispered through therapy speakers. Just wind, and ash, and me. Alive. I pulled off the bracelet last. Set it in the soot. Not to forget. To finish. They tried to erase me with science, with contracts, with silence. But I outlived every version they tried to sculpt me into. I named myself. Not for them. For the girl on the swing. The one with the wind in her hair and no one telling her who she had to be. I stood. Walked back to the car with nothing in my hands. But everything in my heart.